Hello, this is another one of my videos on Shaykhism, this one dealing with Dennis MacEoin's take on Shaykh Ahmad's relationship to Shaykhism. It comes from Dennis's essay on Shaykh Ahmad Bālāsarī in the Encyclopedia Iranica, which I recommend you to look at. It's available both online and in print. I mentioned Dennis's contribution to both Shaykhi studies and Wahabi studies in the previous video, but let me just repeat that there is a useful essay by him on early Shaykhi reactions to the Bab and his claims, which was included in his PhD thesis, which in turn was included in his book The Messiah of Shiraz, which was published by Brill in 2009. You may find the title of this video, Shaykh Ahmad's relationship to Shaykhism, slightly strange, but in Dennis's essay, which I think reflects general opinion, Shaykh Ahmad is best seen as the inspiration for, but not the actual founder of an organized Shaykhi movement. Dennis writes, Asari is generally regarded today as the founder of the Shaykhi school of Shi'ism, an essentially orthodox movement, which is nevertheless still viewed with suspicion by the mass of Shi ulama. In many ways, this view is incorrect. There is no reason to believe that the Shaykh sought to bring into existence a separate body, an ecclesiola, as it were, within the system of Pelva Shi'ism. To the end of his life, he stressed the orthodoxy of his views and saw his own function as essentially that of an alim insisting on the revival of the primitive virtues of Shi'i belief, particularly as expressed in personal devotion to the Imams. Granted that, as we shall note, some of his theories were unusual, there is no reason why they could not, like many of the concepts developed by the Eshraqi school and the school of Esfahan, have been assimilated by the mainstream of Shi'i thought. This possibility is put forward most strongly by Corbin, who stresses the continuity of Shaykhi metaphysical teaching with the theosophical tradition of Iranian Shi'ism, and sees in Shaykhism a great resurgence of Shi'i gnosis. It should not be forgotten, however, that the continuity is equally strong in less philosophical and metaphysical areas of belief. In one of his writings, for example, Shaykh Ahmad provides a systematic outline of Shi'i doctrine, which is entirely consistent with the majority tradition. At the time of Asari's death, in 1826, there was no hint of an attempt to set up a separate school within Shi'ism, to create a division based either on doctrinal differences or on conflicting claims to authority. Despite the Takfir campaign originated by Bālāsarī, the Shaykh's position was still essentially that of one of the most respected and influential of the Shi'i ulama, a mujtahid and mujtahid taqlid, to whom a sizable body of talab, that's students, and older clergy gave allegiance. By no means all of his pupils and admirers later became identified as Shaykhis in the technical sense. Many, such as Mullah Ali Nouri and Haj Ibrahim Kalbasi, continued in later years as perfectly respectable ulama with no overt connections with the Shaykhi school. Given time and the support of prominent mujtahids such as Mullah Muhammad Baqir Shafti, who refused to countenance Bālāsarī's takfir, it is probable that the heresy campaign would have faded away on the Shaykh's death. Once it was forgotten, his reputation as a Shi'i alim would have been assured. But the removal of Asari was in fact the trigger for the emergence of a coherent group of ulama who sought to defend his teachings against the takfir. Before leaving Karbala, the Shaykh had given his leading pupil, Sayyid Kazim Rashdi, authority to teach there on his behalf. Remaining permanently in Karbala, Rashdi and other pupils of the Shaykh set out to demonstrate the orthodoxy of his views, thus providing a focus for continuing attacks by Sayyid Muhammad Mahdi Tabatabai, Sheikh Ali Najafi, and Sayyid Ibrahim Qazwini. Inevitably, in the course of the polemics which ensued between the two parties, the few relatively minor topics on which the takfir had first been based were multiplied on the slightest pretext until the real issue was lost. Before long, political rivalry increased the division between Rushdie and his supporters, popularly known as the Shaykhis, and their opponents, who termed themselves the Bālāsarī, because they prayed above the head, the sar, of Imam Hussein in the shrine, whereas the followers of Rushdie, out of respect, prayed at the foot of the tomb. Nevertheless, as late as 1842, Rushdie persisted in denying the charge that he had established a new mazhab within Islam. He constantly represented himself as simply the expounder and defender of the views and persons of his sheikh. The meaning of the term shaykhi, used to refer to what he calls the sect in Farqa, is simply people who are adherents of the sheikh. Rushdie not only defended the orthodoxy of Afsari's views, but also sought to emphasize the positive role of his teacher as an alim endowed with more than usual authority. Significantly, the original takfir made no mention of the role assigned to Asari either by himself or by his students, but it is here, rather than in any specific doctrinal issue or the interpretation of such issues, that the Shaykhi school found its true raison d'etre. Asari's early dreams and visions have been noted above, that's in the previous video. On another occasion, he dreamt that he was taught verses by Imam Hassan to enable him to call on the Imams whenever he required an answer to any problem. On two occasions, once with Imam Hassan and once with the Prophet Muhammad, he claimed to have undergone what appears to have been a form of initiatory ritual involving the drinking of saliva from the mouths of the Imam and the Prophet. This belief that the Shaykh's knowledge was directly granted him by the Prophet and the Imams distinguishes Asari from contemporary religious leaders. The role of the Imams as spiritual guides is familiar in Shi'ism, but Asari seems to have taken this concept to an extreme degree. He claimed that since he derived his knowledge directly from the Prophet and the Imams in dreams, error could not find its way into his words, and that he could easily answer any criticism leveled against him. In one place, he describes these dreams as ilham, but more usually he speaks of kashf, the last concept being given sufficient prominence to rise to the use of the term kashfiyya for the Shaykhi school. As Asari's successor, Rushdie saw his sheikh as a possessor of knowledge from the Imams and as the revealer of the inward truth of Islam, the Batin. In one of his works, Rushdie refers to two ages of the dispensation of Muhammad, an age of outward observances and an age of inward realities. The former age came to an end after 12 centuries, and the second age then commenced. In every century of the first age, there appeared a promulgator of the outward laws. At the commencement of the first century of the second age, the first promulgator of the inward truth was Shaykh Ahmad. This concept of the role of Asari was clearly current amongst Rushdie's followers, as appears from an anonymous risala written sometime after 1845. The author speaks of the beginning of the revelation of inner truth in the person of Asari at the end of 1200 years, and refers to him as the promulgator of the first century of the second age, and indeed of the 12th century of the first age of outward truth. The later Shaykhi school in Kerman has tended to play down this view of Bālāsarī, who is depicted as little more than an inspired reviver of Shi'ism. So thank you for listening, and particular thanks to my patrons for their kind support and encouragement, without which I wouldn't be able to make these videos. You're very welcome to support my channel if you so wish. Please do like, comment and share other videos. Subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. I'll give Patreon and PayPal links below in case you want to provide practical support. Next week we'll move on to Shaykh Ahmad's doctrinal views. Have a good day.